For the most part, we think of bias as not being able to see something without a preconceived notion of what it should look like. While this can sometimes be good, it more often than not ends up being detrimental. So let's here define bias as an inclination or outlook that prevents an unprejudiced consideration of a matter. In a recent podcast, we observed how bias hinders us in many ways. One big example is that bias keeps us from listening. If listening to someone we agree with, our preconceived notions of reality are being bolstered, and that's comfortable. But what happens when there's a contrary or questionable viewpoint? Do we listen, or do we just pretend? Unfortunately, our bias against contrary opinions and even facts that we'd rather not hear usually prevails. And these habitual responses actually shut down our ability to potentially hear truth. Bias stifles our growth, and worst of all, it's unchristian on every level. Click the link in the description to hear our recent podcast episode, Is My Christian Judgment Tainted by Bias, Part 1. We examined several striking biblical examples of bias in action. While focusing on the destructive power of bias, we also lay out several countermeasures. Because bias can't simply be turned off, we work on calming it down and redirecting its energy. Bias is a problem. Join us to see how personally applying biblical principles can change that. Thanks for watching another CQ Moments That Matter. Click below to subscribe and get updates on new videos.